Well, the man in charge of the country's coffers, Treasury CEO Ukur Yatani, is lashing out at what he calls ignorant leaders, saying that he will not allocate some funds to the Constituency Development Fund. We have that plus many other stories ahead in this broadcast of this 22nd day of September 2022. But first, let's have a look at the highlights. Tonight, no cheaper ugali in sight. Government maintains that there will be no immediate intervention to reduce the price of maize flour.
We are focused to increasing agricultural productivity that will lead to increased supply and eventually lower food prices due to the forces of supply and demand.
Deputy President Ezeka Sacco CEO saying that they are focused on increasing agricultural productivity.
We'll make available 1.4 million bags of 50 kg of fertilizer to farmers during the ongoing short rains.
Treasury CS Ukur Yatani lashes out at Kenya Kwanza leaders over the state of public coffers.
Some leaders were saying that, okay, they did not find the coffers were empty, the treasury did not have money. It was only 93 million shillings that was found there. And we find it very... Really, I don't know whether to sympathize with the situation because there's a lot of ignorance about it.
A storm is brewing, however, over CDF, with Yatani insisting he will not be apportioning millions to the fund.
The Supreme Court has made a pronouncement that CDF as it is illegal, and therefore we are not going to disburse funds.
Many more Kenyans across the country are going to bed with empty stomachs tonight as counties ravaged by the drought situation continue to increase.
Sasa tuko hata mahindi ukicha, mahindi iko buti mbili. Sasa na buti mbili ni nini tutavuna kwa hapo? Sasa tunaona tuko na njaa sasa.
Good evening once more and welcome to the broadcast. My name is Eric Munene. Our sign language interpreter is Catherine Simoloy. Just how much money is in the state coffers? At least not 93 million shillings, according to Treasury CS Ukur Yatani, who has lashed out at Kenya Kwanza leaders for what he says is misleading Kenyans. This as the heated debate over the CDF threatens to burn relations between the executive and parliament. Flora Limuki begins this broadcast tonight.
7 days into the new administration, the conversation around the country's financial status has taken center stage, with the new administration crying foul for what they say is having inherited a dilapidated economy with only 93 million shillings in the treasury. While denying that the public purse is empty, Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani has lashed out at Kenya Kwanza leaders for what he says is making misleading remarks on the financial status of the country.
Some leaders were saying that, okay, they did not find the coffers were empty, the treasury did not have money. It was only 93 million shillings that was found there. And we find it very, really, I don't know whether to sympathize with the situation because there's a lot of ignorance about it.
And in what could lead to a new battlefront between Parliament and the Executive, Yatani was addressing the Senators' induction workshop that entered day 4 today, as echoed Chief Justice Martha Koome's sentiments that the Constituency Development Fund CDF is illegal, stating that the National Treasury will not allocate monies on the same.
The Supreme Court has made a pronouncement that CDF as it is illegal, and therefore we are not going to disburse funds, but we sought advice from the Attorney General for further direction.
This as a section of MPs insist that they are in the process of marshalling their numbers in their bid to fine-tune the law to accommodate CDF, which was declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court.
Lakini Mkenya anajua kama kuna fedha ambao zinasaidia Mkenya ni za CDF. Na wakitaka tutaiweka kwa katiba na namba tuko nazo katika bunge.
Na huyo Ukur Yatani mimi nakuhakikishia kwamba ataenda nyumbani haraka iweze. Kwa hiyo yale yote anaongea huko Naivasha aongee kwa sababu anajifurahisha, lakini hakuna maneno yote tutafuata.
Yatani now calling on the Senate to come up with stringent laws that will nip the graft dragon in the bud, which has become synonymous with county government.
The counties have over-relied on the equitable share and completely ignored own source revenue.
Issues bordering on clearance of pending bills also played out, with outgoing Uasin Gishu Governor turned Senator Jackson Mandago claiming that the issue of pending bills has been made worse by the late disbursement of funds from the Treasury.
But it is also true that there are counties that inherited a lot of staff from the functions that were devolved.
Yatani has vowed to work with the new administration in the transition process. Flora Limuki, TV47.
Now, as millions of Kenyans wait for immediate intervention that will lower the price of unga, the government maintains that it is focused on increasing agricultural productivity in a bid to increase supply and reduce the high cost of food. Moige William with that report.
As farmers continue flocking NCPB stores countrywide to get their share of cheaper fertilizer, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua was at the Harambee Annex assuring them that they will get the cheaper farm input just in time for the start of the short rains in October.
The government, we are focused to increasing agricultural productivity that will lead to increased supply and eventually lower food prices due to the forces of supply and demand.
While flagging off 2,600 bags of subsidized DAP fertilizer, Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua announced that the consignment is part of the 1.4 million bags of 50 kg fertilizer that will be made available to farmers at subsidized prices.
One of our first pronouncements was to lower fertilizer prices to set the pace for the implementation of this intervention, dubbed the Fertilizer Subsidy Program. The National Treasury has already availed 3.55 billion towards this intervention.
The South Rift, Northern, Nairobi, Eastern and Coast region will be among the priority areas set to benefit from subsidized fertilizer, whose price has gone down by 2,525 shillings from the current market prices.
Under this program, the government, through the National Cereals and Produce Board, will make available 1.4 million bags of 50 kg of fertilizer to farmers during the ongoing short rains.
And in what might come as a blow to majority of Kenyans who are choking under the yoke of the high cost of basic foodstuffs like the staple maize flour, the Deputy President once again maintained that the government will not be making any immediate intervention in the prices.
As a country, we are facing unprecedented high food prices occasioned by both internal and external factors. The government is alive to the high cost of living that has persisted over the past years.
As this was going on, farmers in Bungoma County are upbeat for the intervention.
Nimechionea mbolea, nimekuja Bungoma cereal board, nimenunua mbolea kwa shilingi 3,500.
Najua sasa ukishazoesha mtoto kitu, usikuwa unaweka tu bei mingi safari moja. Tulikuwa tunachukulia 28, 27. But sasa hiyo wameongeza tu 35. Hiyo bado iko juu sana kwa mkulima wa kawaida kama mimi.
Farmers, however, have called on the national government to further lower the prices of fertilizer, citing the demand of the farm input is much high.
We just have continuous planting. Na unapopanda at least paka lazima uwe na mbolea. Kitu ambacho nimeona changamoto ni ya kwamba wakati ule tulikuwa tunanunua kwa 27, 28. Na saa hii nimeona ni 35. Sasa nina just a court request kwa serikali yetu, ngawache ngali changa, ngependa iwe 18 or 20 kama wamepeleka juu sana, kwa sababu watu wengi ni masikini.
According to the Ministry of Agriculture, farmers can get a 50 kg bag of listed fertilizer at various prices. The ministry further indicated that individual farmers will be entitled to a maximum of 150 kg bags. Moige William, TV47.
Now, various counties bordering Uganda are on high alert following the surging outbreak of the hemorrhagic disease. Confirmed cases have reached 6, with residents in the border counties asking the national and county governments to work together to stop the outbreak. Lucky Heriano with the details. Well, we do apologize for that. I understand that that story is being prepared. We'll air it in a few. Now, moving on, the National Social Security Fund has... Let me take that again. I'm sorry for that. Now, the death toll from the killer brew incident in Isiolo has risen to 7 after 2 more people succumbed to the menace. Police have since launched a major crackdown for the illicit brew, and amid reports that over a dozen cartons of the bad brew are in circulation. And as Hayamba Emmanuel now tells us, the unabated killer trade is now causing a strain in families. Have a look.
Even as Kenyans continue having unlimited family planning options, the government has urged users to exercise caution as the market is awash with counterfeit products. Of key concern by the ministry is the influx of foreign products branded as being herbal, which mostly attract a huge chunk of users but end up not being herbal.
The analysis that was done.
The lethal effect of illicit brew continues sinking in Isiolo County after 2 more people died as a result of consuming the bad brew.
Imeanza kuleta madhara na tumepoteza watu 7.
This coming 3 days after 5 people died and 3 others admitted in hospital after consuming the killer brew, identified as smart vodka, which was purchased at Lodokoe Market along the border of Isiolo and Samburu counties.
So tunawaomba wazirudishe sababu hatutaki ilete madhara kwa wananchi tena. Tunaomba wazirudishe wapeleke kwa police station.
1 more person has since gone blind also after consuming the illicit brew.
Na jana kuna mtu mmoja aliletwa hospitali tena na anaendelea na matibabu, lakini amepoteza kuona. The person has lost their sight.
The situation now putting residents at loggerheads with the law enforcement for their lukewarm approach to stopping the production and sale of the killer brew. Besides the rise in deaths, the residents say the menace is affecting their marriages, with most husbands blaming their wives for neglecting their children.
Wakati mtoto anaharibika, unasikia mzee anasema, hii ni mtoto yako ameharibika. Huu si kijana yangu, ni yako. Chunga yeye asiende kuharibika. Sasa hii ni jukumu yetu sisi yote, wasasi wote wawili, baba na mama.
The ripple effect of the illicit trade, the residents say, is many youths engaging in crime to support the drug use lifestyle apps.
Nasikia mtoto wa fulani ameuawa na huyo mama anabaki na ile uchungu. Mtoto amekufa kwa sababu ya ulevi na huko anaitwa mwizi. Yeye ni mlevi na hiyo wizi si ati sababu yeye ni mwizi, hajazaliwa mwizi, lakini kwa sababu ya ile urge inambidi hana mapato yoyote ya kupata zile madawa, inambidi mtoto aende aibe kuku ya jirani.
Police have since launched a crackdown over the killer trade amid reports that over 14 cartons are in circulation.
We want to continue to urge them. Waeleza kwamba tueleze waendelee kueleza polisi na wadau wa security ndio tusaidiane pamoja.
Hayamba Emmanuel, TV47.
Well, moving on, various counties bordering Uganda are on high alert following the surging outbreak of the hemorrhagic disease. Confirmed cases have reached 6, with residents in the border counties now asking the national and county governments to work together to stop the outbreak. Lucky Heriano with the details.
Hours after the Ministry of Health urged all counties to increase surveillance in the wake of the surging Ebola outbreak in Uganda, residents and their leaders are on high alert as confirmed cases in Uganda rise to 7.
Wale ambao wanapitia wale kwa border point ile ambayo iko recognized wanaweza kufanywa screening. Tuko na mipango ya kufanya hivyo, lakini pia la muhimu ni kwamba wakazi wote hasa upande wa Kenya wapunguze sana safari za kwenda Uganda, na ikiwezekana kwa sasa wasiende kabisa.
Miles away in Busia, residents of the border county are urging both the national and county government to work together to avoid a scenario where the virus will find its way into the country.
Ni ombi langu kwa serikali ya kaunti ya Busia na serikali kuu iweze kujali sana wananchi ambayo wanaoingia mahali hapa ambao wanatoka katika sehemu, unakuta la kwamba wengine wanatoka Uganda, wengine wanatoka Kongo, wengine wanatoka Rwanda. Kwa hivyo tunaomba la kwamba serikali ikaweze kuingilia kati, ikaweze kuwa kama inaweza kuwa na suluhu, ikaweze kuingilia kati na ikaweze kusaidia wananchi.
The hemorrhagic disease is said to have claimed 2 people so far, with 7 other deaths are being investigated as suspected cases of a strain for which authorities do not have a vaccine. In efforts to contain the spread, the Ministry of Health says it will train and send health officials to all entry points to identify potential Ebola cases. Anyone suspected of being infected with the Ebola virus will be quarantined and sample taken to laboratories for testing. On Monday, Uganda confirmed a case of Ebola in Mubende district, making the information public on Tuesday. The Democratic Republic of Congo, which neighbors Uganda to the west, is currently battling an outbreak of Ebola virus disease after a new case was detected in August, just over a month after the country declared an end to the 14th outbreak. South Sudan is also on high alert following the outbreak in Uganda and DRC. Lucky Hiriano reporting for TV47.
Now to politics. Tonight, members of parliament from both Azimio and Kenya Kwanza alliances are united in their quest for more parks, this time even threatening to ban the Salaries and Remuneration Commission from determining their remuneration and instead have the Parliamentary Service Commission take over SRC's mandate. And as our senior political affairs reporter Apollo Kamau reports, this emerged after talks on the MP's alliances stalled after hours of deliberations, forcing National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula to call off the sitting until after 7 days.
After getting off on a rocky start with the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, members of the National Assembly, unhappy with the scrapping of their key allowances, have now trained their guns on the Lynn Mengich-led commission, which they accuse of failing to understand their plight. The MPs argue the Parliamentary Service Commission is best placed to handle their welfare.
Our employer is Parliamentary Service Commission. They are the ones who understand our role, what we do. They are the ones who understand the circumstances under which we operate in. They are the ones who should decide which type of allowance we should be paid, and not SRC. SRC, they are overstepping their mandate.
Kama ule amesimamia mshahara, because kama HR manager, lazima kuwe na open mind, kwa sababu usipo compensate MPs vizuri, sheria inatengenezwa na MP, budget hata ile ya State House inaapproviwa hapa bungeni. Kwa hivyo usipolinda National Assembly na Senate, unaharibu Kenya. Kwa hivyo make sure that the MP is comfortable with you so that deliver kazi vile inatakikana.
Signs that all is not well emerged on Wednesday afternoon after 5-hour talks between the two sides failed to bear fruits in a sitting chaired by Parliamentary Service Commission Chairman and Speaker Moses Wetangula, forcing the talks to be postponed after 7 days.
So at this point, there is nothing for us to come and say this is what we have agreed, this is what we have disagreed. We did not disagree or agree on anything specific.
The SRC have told us they are going to write to the House of Parliament through Parliamentary Service Commission and indicate the issues they have discussed, where there were misapprehensions of fact, where there were reductions of expectations of members, and where there were overstated issues beyond the expectations of members.
The bone of contention is the scrapping of the 5,000 shillings plenary sitting allowance and mileage allowance, which they want reinstated. They also want SRC to factor MPs living in far-flung areas, while their Nairobi counterparts want a mileage allowance pegged at 350,000 shillings flat rate a month. The MPs further want the car grant increased from 5.5 million shillings to 7.5 million shillings. Also in contention is a job group classification, placing them at the same level with the Court of Appeal judges.
We want SRC to return the sitting allowance, the committee allowance, this amount of money. We had a very good debate by Kenyans, by our forefathers, who felt that in their own wisdom that members of parliament need to be paid that sitting allowance.
The members were not asking anything new, anything extra from probably what they had before. Yeah, they were just talking about
what was there before for the members just be retained. But it is, the SRC as a constitutional mandate. It is up to them to see the merits and demerits. Yeah.
On Wednesday, SRC is said to have presented its case on why the current prevailing economic climate is not suitable for their demands, with SRC targeting to save R1 billion annually from the plenary sitting allowance, but the MPs argue they want reinstatement and not increment. With members of the National Assembly taking no for an answer as far as their allowances are concerned, a no-nonsense SRC sticking to its guns means it will bear the burden of the consequences to be imposed by the MPs once the House resumes. Apul Kamau, TV47 in Nairobi.
Well, the Ministry of Health is asking you to be extra vigilant when it comes to family planning products, as the market is currently flooded with counterfeit products. This, according to the ministry, leads to major irreversible complications to the children born after the products fail. Zainab Mohammed with more.
Even as Kenyans continue having unlimited family planning options, the government has urged users to exercise caution as the market is awash with counterfeit products. Of key concern by the ministry is the influx of foreign products branded as being herbal, which mostly attract a huge chunk of users but end up not being herbal.
The analysis that was done by Dr. Ndwiga, not me, my colleague at the University of Nairobi through the National Lab, showed that the tablet is not herbal at all. It contains very, very high levels of estrogen and progesterone that are toxic to a lot of people.
The counterfeit products that are prescribed for once a month use most often than not fails, causing serious irreversible health problems among newborns.
When that tablet fails, which is most of the times, you see children born and they experience a lot of effects from what their mother took. You've seen children being born and they develop what we call precocious puberty. You start developing secondary sexual characteristics at a very early age.
The existence of counterfeit family planning products is not a new phenomenon in the country, with the government often always blaming porous borders and crime syndicates for the flooding of those products in the market.
Is it possible? Do we have counterfeits? Do we have counterfeit and unlicensed commodities in our country? Yes. Why? We have porous borders. We have borders that some, even the legal borders, can actually have things come in the country without being declared as should be in the law.
Apart from counterfeit family planning products, the ministry has also cautioned young women and girls from normalizing the use of emergency contraceptive pills. The ministry says, despite P2 being a legally available option in the market, women and girls from a certain age group are abusing the drug, posing serious reproductive health issues in the near future. Zainab Mohammed, T47.
Moving on, parents with children with hearing impairment are decrying being neglected by the Ministry of Education in as far as the construction of schools is concerned. This came out during an event in the auspices of the International Week of the Deaf, where the parents sought for interventions that would ensure a greater advantage to their children, especially in the education sector. Now, the sign language interpreters have lauded the government for putting into consideration measures in the new competency-based curriculum that ensures hearing impairment inclusivity.
We are here to just create awareness, to say they are not dumb. If they do other things, they can, if you give them, they dance.
So I hope like other parents of kids who can't hear, who can hear, can talk to their kids that yes, there are deaf children out here. They're just like you. You can play with them, interact with them normally, so that even the deaf kids can feel included in society.
Most of the times, parents fear to expose their children to other languages, and I would say that government would help to help these parents know that it's a language like any other. How? By including sign language in the education system, and not from the upper classes, from kindergarten going up, so that this child learns with this language from 0 to up, that they know it's part of my...
We have also realized a major intervention done by the government, especially on the curriculum that we're having right now, the CBC. They have tried to get to make sure it is more digitalized, having virtual classes, and you will have, for example, the one that has been mentioned, the Tusome, that the deaf person can actually use her phone or maybe the laptop, or probably in the class they can just have a very inclusive class when just following whatever is happening through the phone.
Well, the move by President William Ruto to institute mechanisms of having the position of Chief Administrative Secretary recognized by law continues to elicit mixed reactions, with some saying it could be a way of paying off political debt as opposed to public service. This as the Public Service Commission PSC has now invited members of the public to submit their views on the proposed establishment of the position of Chief Administrative Secretary CAS. Now, the position, it's good to know that the position was actually created back in 2018 by former President Uhuru Kenyatta, who wanted to reward what some say were called then political losers who had lost their various seats. And I understand that that report right there is being prepared. Well, let's move on as that is being prepared. Well, let's move on now. Still in politics. Now, Embakasi East lawmaker Babu Owino now accuses the Raila Odinga-led party of misusing and dumping their youth. His sentiments coming amidst a brewing rivalry in the party that was set to convene this week. And as Paul Munio now reports, the party boss Raila Odinga is set to meet the members next week in a bid to avert the cracks.
In what appears to express dissatisfaction with the party, Embakasi East lawmaker Babu Owino has accused the party of sidelining the youth. The young controversial lawmaker says even after sacrificing resources, the party has resorted to betrayal and blackmail. His tweet would receive the backing of Narok Senator Ledama Olekina, who says it is time to demand what is theirs. The senator has been accusing the party of being undemocratic. ODM boss Raila Odinga was set to meet his troop to quell that already heated rivalry. The meeting, which was to happen this week, has however been rescheduled to next week due to the ongoing Members of Parliament orientation in Nairobi and Naivasha, and which is set to end on Saturday. Party chairman John Mbadi has already complained of being sidelined after he was kicked out as the now controversial majority leader position in the National Assembly and his position given to Ugunja lawmaker Opiyo Wandayi. Mbadi terms Wandayi as his junior in the party.
Then would you have Opiyo Wandayi, who is my junior in the party, leading me in the National Assembly? It does not make sense unless you tell me now to surrender also the position of chairmanship, so that he becomes my boss in all aspects.
In a meeting over the weekend, the party unveiled Opiyo Wandayi as the National Assembly Majority Leader, Robert Mbui as his deputy, Junet Mohammed as the Majority Whip, and Sabina Chege of Jubilee deputizing him. The former Homa Bay gubernatorial hopeful faulted that the move by his party to settle on Wandayi signified that he failed in his tenure as the minority leader in the 12th Parliament. Mbadi says he was punished to sacrifice his gubernatorial hopes for now Governor Gladys Wanga. Paul Munio, TV 47.
Well, at 28 minutes past the hour, time now for a very short break. We'll be back with more. Don't go away.
You are watching TV 47, the home of untold stories.
At Strison School of Medical Health Science and Technology, We prepare the change makers of tomorrow by training them in theatre technology, medical engineering, science laboratory and health records, applied biology, environmental health science, nutrition and dietetics, ICT, counseling psychology, and many more. Enroll with us today and take a certificate or diploma course. Visit our campuses in Juja, Nairobi West, Kisumu, and Homa Bay and get your career going.
Usiyakubalie maumivu ya misuli kukatiza ratiba yako. Kaluma Pain Balm ni dawa ya kusugua iliyotengenezwa kutoka kwa miche maalum ili kutuliza maumivu ya misuli. Kaluma Pain Balm. Maumivu yakizidi, pata ushauri wa daktari.
This fall, a new dawn rises in the Kenyan entertainment scene. We call
Disability is not only limited to physical disorder, but also mental issue. From depression,
I was under depression for like 2 years.
Bipolar.
Bipolar disorder is a mood disorder.
And even suicidal thoughts.
When I was just about to hang myself, a certain voice just talked to me, and I believe that was God. I tried suicide more than 6 times.
Beyond the Limit has gone beyond its limit to find answers so as to help everyone go through life with ease. Join Muthoni Maina every Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Starting this September at 8:30 p.m. on Tuesday, The Realtor brings it all to perspective. We identify a property, discuss and demonstrate the journey towards ownership.
Professionals who have integrity, and from their catalog you can easily read that these are professionals who are able to deliver.
Everywhere you go, you have to up your games, you have to go with the trends.
Not forgetting the margins as well as the risks that come along.
The runaway prices of the land. We are saying that it's something that we can never go without mentioning. Any developer will not go without mentioning price of land.
Don't miss out. Do you want the latest news on farming? We've got the WikiLeaks for you. Get it? No? Well, okay. Every week, we give you insights on different farms, from crop farming to animal keeping.
They're very hardy insects, yeah? The larvae is a very hardy insect.
We look forward to having an optimum production in maybe about 5 years. Yes. Yeah.
So we plant every week and we harvest every week.
Join Violet Njoki every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. as we skooma the wiki.
It's not all the time you have to read your farm. Sometimes it's of benefit.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. Now, the move by President William Ruto to institute mechanisms of having the position of Chief Administrative Secretary recognized by law continues to elicit mixed reactions, with some saying it could be a way of paying off political debt as opposed to public service. This, as the Public Service Commission PSC has now invited members of the public to submit their views on the proposed establishment of the position of Chief Administrative Secretary, or CAS. Micah Gongo reports.
The position of Chief Administrative Secretary was initially created by former President Uhuru Kenyatta in 2018, a move that will later be declared unconstitutional due to, among other things, the lack of public participation. 4 years later, the incoming President William Ruto is seemingly trying to right the wrongs of his predecessors by instituting mechanisms of having the position of Chief Administrative Secretary recognized by law.
The Constitution does not stipulate how a president can create a position, except as he did. Because it's simple, create a position. And this position was not created by the president, it was created by the creator of positions. And the creator of position is a Public Service Commission. It's a commission that manages the affairs. It's a commission that that has professional criteria of how public servants are appointed, nominated, or employed in government as junior as clerks. How are clerks brought up in government?
According to former sports CAS Zak Kinuthia, retired President Uhuru Kenyatta decided to establish a new position in government to broadly be responsible for helping the cabinet secretary to better coordinate the running of the affairs of their respective ministries.
The president looked around and saw he had a multitude of debts to pay, political debts to pay. And he contacted the then chairman of Public Service Commission, it was called the Stephen Kericho, may he so rest in peace, and asked him to interpret the article as the chairman of Public Service Commission and whether he had power or leeway to create a position that would be of a profile of an assistant minister. So what people don't know is that several ideas were tabled and every idea would come up with a problem. Because they said, let's call them deputy ministers. But the constitution had written off the position of a minister and created a cabinet secretary.
While declaring it unconstitutional in April 2021, High Court Judge Anthony Mrima also noted that the chief administrative secretaries who continued to serve without undergoing vetting in 2017 are in office illegally. Some of the issues raised then and still linger now is the unclear roles plus the cost that comes with the creation of the new position, which many saw as a move to pay off political debt by presidents rewarding their cronies, mostly political losers with positions in government much to the detriment of the already unbearable public wage bill.
Government agenda is communicated by politicians. But remember, this time politicians are not in cabinet. This time politicians are not in ministries. How then do we create a position where Kenyans are in tandem with what their government is doing? That is how CAS position was coming into existence. And that is why I think also William Ruto, the president, has not scrubbed the position.
CAS is there not just to reward cronies, not to reward political cronies, or people are saying President Ruto is trying to create, to reward cronies through CAS. No. I've been in Parliament. I know sometimes we have to wait for a minister to come to a committee to answer or respond to some questions or a petition, and it takes 2-3 months because the CS himself is busy.
In a statement issued on Wednesday, the Public Service Commission disclosed President William Ruto's intention to retain the CAS position, but in accordance with the provisions of Article 132(4)(a) of the Constitution. Part of the statement read, and I quote, "The President has proposed to establish the offices of the Chief Administrative Secretary, which will be offices in the public service and will be under the direction of Cabinet Secretaries. The Public Service Commission will recommend persons to hold the position of Chief Administrative Secretary for appointment through a competitive recruitment process that shall culminate in a nomination by the President and vetting by the National Assembly." End of quote. The Commission noted that the functions of Chief Administrative Secretaries will entail responding to issues touching on the portfolio assigned to the office, providing liaison with the National Assembly and Senate, providing liaison with county governments on matters of concurrent mandate and common interests. The Chief Administrative Secretary's mandate will also include providing interministerial coordination, representing the Cabinet Secretary at any meeting as instructed by the Cabinet Secretary, and executing any other duties and responsibilities specifically assigned to the office by the Cabinet Secretary, in furtherance of the interests of the ministry. Applicants interested in the CAS position will be required to possess a bachelor's degree from a recognized university and excellent interpersonal and communication skills. Kinuthia says for the past 2 years he has served in different departments as Chief Administrative Secretary. He has acquired vast experience and will not mind extending his services to President Ruto's government if given a chance.
And if I would come back in government as a principal secretary or any other government job, I would come back as a proud man who has shown what he is, who has shown what he can do, who has left footprints in the arena of service to our mankind. and I would be very proud.
Members of the public are required to submit their views on the proposal to create the CAS position through writing to the Secretary, Public Service Commission.
The move by the head of state comes as the term of former occupants of the office comes to an end. Now, the competitive recruitment will see both loyalists and non-loyalists acquire the position of CAS without biasness. Mike Kagwango, TV 47, Nairobi.
Well, thank you, Mike Kagwango, for that. The National Social Security Fund NSSF Act 2013 has been ruled as unconstitutional. A three-judge bench of the Employment and Labor Relations Court consisting of Matthew Nduma, Helen Osilwa and Monica Mbaru argued that the bill ought to have been tabled before the Senate prior to its enactment. And Stanley Nyeringita now tells us the institution was conceived in a bid to offer social protection to workers.
It is a major relief to employers and employees after a three-judge bench of the Employment and Labor Relations Court ruled against the National Social Security Fund NSSF Act 2013. The bench, consisting of Matthew Nduma, Helen Wasilwa and Monica Mbaru, argued that the promoters of the act did not get a nod from the Senate, despite it affecting county employees and finances of devolved units. In their written ruling, the judges also barred NSSF Board of Trustees and CS Labour from applying the NSSF Act of 2013 on Kenya County Government, workers' union members or any other employees who have adequate alternative pension or social security schemes unless they opt in. In the Quashed Act, total pension contribution for both the worker and employee was supposed to be a maximum of 2,160 Kenyan shillings, which is 12% of proposed maximum pensionable earnings of 18,000 Kenyan shillings.
Symbolizes the green.
The decision by the court followed a suit by Kenya County Government Workers Union, which sued the NSSF board, former Labour Cabinet Secretary Kazungu Kambi, among others, claiming that the increased rate as stipulated in the NSSF Act 2013 negatively affects pensioners. Stanley Nyeringita, TV 47, Nairobi.
Now, the United Nations President William Ruto delivered his first address as president, which largely brought many issues affecting Africa to the world stage. Experts say the speech was largely a plea to the developing countries to take responsibility for the major incidences that have destabilized the world's economy.
President William Ruto was on the world stage at the 77th United Nations General Assembly, where he delivered his maiden speech as the president. President Ruto used the first part of his 38-minute address to rally world leaders to focus on those in the bottom of the economic pyramid, which he says will be critical in boosting world economies.
The ingenuity, optimism, resilience and energy in this ever-bustling bottom is sometimes called hustling. Invisibly to policymakers and beyond the reach of many public services, these hustlers take nothing for granted, surviving overwhelming odds and frequently succeeding greatly.
The president taking time to tackle the 3 C's of COVID, climate change and the conflict between Russia and Ukraine as the biggest setback for economic advancement in most, if not all, developed countries.
Kenya and the rest of Africa, like other developing nations, are in need of greater international partnership and cooperation to avert economic crisis in the wake of the pandemic. I suggest that we have a golden opportunity to faithfully adhere to this motto by augmenting it inward and indeed with an additional B, building back better from the bottom.
While coming face to face with global lenders, the president asked for more time to fulfill Kenya's debt obligation. He asked the international lenders like IMF and World Bank to reschedule the debt payment terms for middle-income countries where Kenya belongs.
I join other leaders in calling upon the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and other multilateral lenders to extend pandemic-related debt relief to the worst-hit countries, especially those affected by the devastating combination of conflict, climate change, and COVID-19.
On climate change, the president did not shy from confronting developing countries who he says are mostly responsible for the failing climate, with countries like Kenya bearing the greatest brunt.
Investing in modern agricultural technology is therefore one important avenue towards tackling prevailing environmental changes. Kenya is responding through substantial investment in climate-resilient agriculture. At the core of our 10-year strategy for agricultural sector growth and transformation are 9 flagships.
Because the way we do agriculture, we cannot rely on traditional forms of agriculture. The traditional forms of agriculture, we end up eroding the soil because we use topmost soil, exhaust a lot of our farms by farming the same kind of produce that cause a lot of soil erosion and soil pollution. And so we have to find a way of modernizing our agriculture. So we take advantage of technology. And when we take advantage of technology, we are therefore able to have high yields and quality yields that then are able to feed our people. Because the greatest disadvantage that African countries are experiencing with regards to climate change is a food crisis.
Jim India is a political analyst and now tells us that Ruto's speech is timely considering the multiple grave challenges witnessed across the globe, saying his push for inclusivity will help solve some of these challenges. According to Jim, Ruto's proposed input on debt relief will go a long way in sustaining the country's economy.
And he said countries that have borne the conflict of COVID, the climate crisis, and conflict need to be, have a debt relief or those debt forgiven. Now, if you look at Kenya falls in those 3 categories. We have borne the brunt of COVID, we are in a conflict-prone zone, and we have been sheltering the burden of conflict up north. But we are also experiencing a climate crisis here. Our lakes are rising, the waters are rising. We are experiencing drought like never before.
The ongoing war in Ukraine and Russia has also been identified as one of the main causes of the current state of the economy, which has raised the cost of living as prices of flour and fuel skyrocket.
He was back here in the country during the campaigns. They had said that, you cannot tell us that we do not have hunger because there's war in Ukraine and Russia. But now, of course, he's had to admit that there's a ripple effect. For instance, a lot of our cereals come from Ukraine. And so if we're getting cereal from Ukraine, it then means that if there's war there, we're going to a lot of African countries, we're not going to get our cereals. And if we don't get our cereals, it means that the little amounts of cereals that is coming into, for instance, coming into Kenya is going to be highly priced because the supply is low. So it has affected largely the supply channels.
Ruto further called for inclusivity and effective action so as to transform people's lives for peace, security, and shared prosperity. Elizabeth Atieno, TV 47.
Well, moving on now, the ravaging drought being experienced in Marsabit County has created an avenue for dialogue between 2 antagonistic communities in the county. Now, the move has seen a number of people who were displaced following skirmishes return to their villages. The drought situation is also a concern in Laikipia and Meru counties.
Normalcy has started resuming in Elbor village in Moyale sub-county 2 years after villagers left due to tribal conflicts escalating in the region. The biting drought has forced the 2 warring communities to bury their differences and instead embrace dialogue in a bid to allow their remaining animals graze freely in the areas that still support vegetation. Speaking after peace meeting between the 2 communities in Elbor village, Chugulis Koyowa noted that there have been engagements between the communities that led to a peaceful coexistence.
Nimehitaji amani zaidi miaka mingi, karibu miaka 5 nimepata shida mingi ya vita. Tumekosa watoto wengi, tumekosa mali mingi. Lakini nimeshukuru Mungu leo iko nafuu kidogo.
The villagers are returning home at a time when drought continues to wreak havoc in the region. They are now appealing to the government to provide them with water and food relief as they struggle to get back to their initial status.
Ngombe yote imekufa na watu wako na njaa. watoto wakakumia na kila mtu hakuna ngombe sahii wako na.
Kwa kipindi cha miaka 5 iliyopita, jamii za hapa Marsabit zimekuwa zikizozana, kisa na maana zikizozania rasilimali ambayo ni maji na malisho baina ya jamii hizo.
Conflict between communities in Marsabit County has led to hundreds of lives being lost, prompting the government to impose a dusk to dawn curfew in May aimed at flushing out criminal elements among the communities. According to Sololo Assistant County Commissioner Ayub Warui, the ravaging drought has forced pastoralists to cooperate as they fear their only source of livelihood might be impacted should they continue fighting.
Kwa jinsi ambavyo kiangazi kimedumu kwa muda mrefu, wameona hawana budi kuja pamoja na kuweza kutumia zile rasilimali pamoja.
According to Samuel Lentoror, the project officer at a local NGO Pasida, communities have agreed to engage in peaceful dialogues and live in harmony.
Kila mmoja alisema roho yake, amesema yale ambayo imewaumiza hawa ili wapigane. Wameona sasa hiyo yote ni kitu ambaye haina maana. Ile yenye iko na maana ni kukaa pamoja na kuishi pamoja kama ndugu na dada.
Reports show that at least 1 million animals have died in the last 3 years in Marsabit, and the situation continues to worsen. In Laikipia County, farmers are worried after their crops were infested with worms. Residents in the area now want the government to intervene.
Sasa tuko hata mahindi okisha, mahindi iko buti mbili. Sasa na buti mbili ni nini tutafuna kwa hapo? Sasa tunaona tuko na njaa sasa.
In Meru County, at least 66,000 families are in dire need of food as the area continues to experience drought. The areas that have been hit hard are Tigania West, Igembe North, Igembe South, Bori East and West. Fred Ndunga is the Meru County Commissioner.
Shule nyingi ambazo ziko kwa mpaka wetu na Isiolo zimeathirika.
Elizabeth Mutuko, TV47, Nairobi.
Well, let's get the latest from the world of business. KECOSO Chief Executive Officer Jimmy Kagoni has stepped down as the Sacco CEO after serving for 2 years at the helm. Addressing the media on Thursday, Kagoni, however, said that he will remain available for a period of 1 month to ensure a smooth transition and help in the process of recruiting his successor. Well, in a statement seen by TV47, Kagoni said that the Sacco has had a steady comeback in its operations and is geared towards gaining back its strong position. Kagoni was appointed by the State Department for Cooperative Development through the Office of the Commissioner for Cooperative Development as the CEO of KECOSO in September 2020.
I'm here to notify the public and all the stakeholders that I'm stepping down as the CEO of Ezeka Sacco, and I've already sent my intention to the Board of Directors effective 30th of September this year, the year 2022. I'm grateful for the opportunity that the government of Kenya had given me since they appointed me the year 2020, same month, the month of September, and they gave me a mandate to work together with a team that I have been working with to restructure the Sacco's operation, because the inquiry report done by the Office of the Commissioner in regard to that Sacco had shown that the Sacco was lacking good structures. There was no proper financial records, there was no HR policies, there was no effective ERP, and that was part of the things that contributed to the Sacco going down. So far, I'm happy to report that now the Sacco is back to business and operational, and it has very functional and well structured to carry out business.
An East African-based business advisory and investments firm known as Inkomoko has announced its strategy to work with 500,000 medium and small micro-enterprises in Kenya by 2030. Under the new strategy, the firm also targets to invest $400 million to support MSMEs across 8 counties 8 countries, in the region by 2030. This is part of a series of events marking the 10th anniversary of the company and the rebranding to a new corporate identity. Nkomoko has been working in Kenya since 2019 with the name African Entrepreneur Active Kenya. Addressing in a Mombasa hotel, the company chief executive officer Julienne Ollier said that this was part of the 10th anniversary celebration that kicked off last week in Rwanda.
We are launching a new brand, connecting the entrepreneurs that we work with here to the entrepreneurs that we work with all across Kenya and into Rwanda and Ethiopia. We've worked with 7,000 entrepreneurs in Kenya and have a great combination of training, consulting, and access to finance. Our finance products also are available in the form of Sharia-compliant investments so that our clients don't have to choose between their faith and their business. And we're really excited about the fantastic partnership we've had throughout the 10 years of our operations. So we're here in Mombasa now, meeting with our colleagues, meeting with our partners, meeting with our clients to really say thank you to all the entrepreneurs and partners that we've had a chance to work with throughout the years throughout East Africa. Most notably in our office here in Mombasa, but also in our offices in Turkana County, in Garissa County, in Kakuma, in Dadaab, and of course our partners at our headquarter office in Nairobi.
Welcome to the latest in the world of sports. The Kenya Rugby Union has confirmed that the 25th edition of the Safari Sevens will be held on 14th of October to the 16th of October this year at the Ngong Road RFUEA grounds. Now, the tournament will feature 12 men and 6 women teams, as well as the age grade and rugby veterans of over 35 years categories, as the tournaments makes a 2-year comeback at RFUA ground after a 2-year hiatus that saw the 2020 event not held due to the COVID-19 pandemic, with the 2021 edition taking place at the Nyayo National Stadium.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So, thank you. So
the tournament is going to happen the weekend of 14th, 15th, 16th October. And we are trying to have 3 categories of this tournament. That will be the vets as usual. I hope I'll play personally. And then we'll have the age grade that we're trying to also allow, because we're trying to develop rugby from the age grade to come up. And then we'll have a 12 team men and 6 team women.
Running from 1996, Safari Sevens has built a very great legacy. It's a very attractive product and creates an opportunity for players to really test themselves. And for the fans, it's both an opportunity to witness international class rugby, but also to enjoy the entertainment, to build the camaraderie, and just continue to celebrate life and what rugby has been for this country.
Moving on, Postal Corporation of Kenya registered a 3-1 win against Kenya Ports Authority in the ongoing Kenya Communications Sports Organizations at the Kericho Green Stadium. Now, Eliud Likuma, Timothy Otieno and William Odera scored for Posta, while William Odero scored a consolation for the Dockers. In the volleyball category, Ministry of Transport, Infrastructure and Urban Development registered a 3-0 set against Kericho County Government with a score of 25-19, 25-20 and 25-14, while Kenya Civil Aviation Authority overpowered Kenya Ports Authority 3-0 of scores 25-14, 25-12 and 25-11 in the basketball match. KPA beat Ministry of Transport, Infrastructure and Urban Development in 81-40 as Kenya Civil Aviation Authority saw Kenya Airports Authority in 87-30.
Mechi ya leo chances, tumepata chances zetu, tukakosa kutumia, wao wakapata wakatumia. Na second half pia tumejaribu kwa uwezo wetu na tukapata bao, na chances pia tukapata lakini hatukuzitumia.
KECOSO
it's a good show because inatusaidia pia kama makoach kujenga team and katika game ya leo imetu expose kidogo na it is a process but ambao tutaenda turekebishe mahali tumeona tuko na makosa, kwa sababu I think my team wakati tunaongoza bao 3